Okay, how old are you today, Grandma?
Oh, today I'm 92.
And what's your birthday?
November the 24th.
Where were you born?
In Charleston, Utah, by the Deer Creek Reservoir.
And tell us a little bit about the place where you were born, if you remember that.
Oh, yes, I remember Grandma's ranch. But we lived in Castle Gate. My dad was working in the mines out there. And so Mother came in and stayed at the grandparents for me to be born. I was the first of 9 children.
Okay.
There are 4 of us living. We walked to school about a mile from our first grade and through 6th grade. Then we went on buses over to Heber to school. But that was great. I was glad to learn. But my dad would take us on the back of the big old workhorse when the weather was too bad. He'd just bridle up the horse and take us to school.
At some point in time you moved out of your parents' home. When did you do that?
When I was 9 years old, I went to live with Aunt Sonia, who was a registered nurse, my mother's sister, and she had 2 little girls, and she was taking over at the big old house they made for a hospital on First South in Heber, First South and West, on the way to Midway. And so I would get up and dress the little girls and have some quick breakfast, go to school, come home at noon and carry trays up the steps to the patients.
Okay.
It wasn't a big hospital, but it always had sick people there.
And so you lived with Aunt Sina until you graduated from high school?
Mm-hmm.
And where did you go to high school?
At Wasatch High School. It was right on Main Street. The building isn't even there anymore. And our seminary was right next door to it. That's not there either. It's just a playing area, park sort of. And so I did have a sister and 2 brothers, younger than me. We'd kneel down around the breakfast table, have breakfast together with cooked or made mush. And we did have a lot of fruit and fruit juice. It was special when Dad would go into Provo Valley and come back with some fruit. And that's where we got our peaches. Mother'd get a whole bushels of peaches and bottle them. And in quart-sized bottles. Oh yes, it was Saturdays. We'd have a bath in the round tin tub, metal tub in front of the kitchen stove. Mother would dip the water out of the reservoir into the tub. So once a week was when we had our bath to be clean for church on Sunday. But she did the washing and we had clean clothes to wear. Just didn't have the bathroom. It was really just a 2-room house. It's where a kitchen and living room and then a bedroom. And that's all it was to that house.
You said that you knew Grandpa Moulton before he went on his mission. How did you know Grandpa Moulton?
Because he was a brother to Adele, his younger sister, and I was good friends with Adele. And he was just Bart, her only brother. And so I did get to know him. And then when he was in the military, in the Air Force during World War II, we wrote letters to each other. And so when he came home, then later we got married. Down to Manti. We had to drive all the way. My dad furnished the gas stamps. Bart's dad furnished the car, and his parents, my parents, and us all went together to the temple.
So when Grandpa went on his mission, where did he go on his mission?
It was called the Northwestern States. It was right up in this area. Northwestern State and even up into Canada. It was Washington and Oregon and up into Canada.
Okay.
And I wrote to him while he was on his mission.
And then he went on his mission, then he went right in the military, or what happened after his mission?
Well, he was in the Air Force when I was writing to him. And I used to just pray that he'd come home and not get killed, because he was right out in the military, in the Air Force.
And what about your father? Memories?
Oh, he used to
said.
go out clear out to Daniels Canyon and Strawberry and chop down pine trees and haul the wood back to our home and then cut it so that we could use it for fuel. I don't think they had money. Well, maybe there wasn't even possibility of a lot of coal, but I'm sure they didn't have a lot of fuel for their heating stoves to keep us warm.
And what kind of jobs did Grandpa Shelton do?
My dad just worked on the farm and farmed and he grew wheat, and then we could get our flour with that from that wheat, and they grew hay, and I remember stacks of hay, real high stacks, where it was stored. You know, it wasn't baled and put away in a shed. It was just a big haystack.
And did he have cattle he fed the hay to, or what did he do with the hay?
Yes, to some cattle. And then I think he sold the cattle. It wasn't that we used them a lot for ourselves. I think maybe that helped him with a little extra money. Christmas was always special. We had a Christmas stocking that we hung for Christmas, and that's had our gifts in it, other than a doll, when we'd get a doll for Christmas. I can't even remember what the boys got, but we'd get some galoshes or boots to wear to school to keep our feet warm, and some stockings, and maybe a new nightgown or something. They weren't elegant Christmases like people have now, but they were very meaningful to us. We had chickens, and we get eggs from the chickens, go to the chicken nests and pick up the eggs and bring in the house so Mother would have the eggs. We didn't have a refrigerator. We had just it wasn't a granary, it was just a kind of an open shed that was right next to our house. But in the wintertime we could keep milk and keep products out there. It's a wonder we didn't all get sick, but they took pretty good care of things, or not having a refrigerator. Those were harder days, I'm sure.
So do you have any other memories of living in Daniels that you want to tell us?
Well, I only lived there till I was 9 years old, and then I went to live with Aunt Sina, my mother's sister, who was a registered nurse, and they opened up that big old home, and it's still there. Last time, on the road that goes to Midway, down just the first corner of the first block. And they needed a hospital so bad, so they named that. They didn't name it the Heber Hospital, but did they? Is that the way you remember it? But anyway, they used that, and she was a registered nurse, and so she was so busy, she had to help with women who were having their babies, you know, before the time for the babies to be delivered, with all the surgeries that they had and accident people who came in. She really was a wonderful woman to help so many people. And Uncle Wendell worked for the power company, and so he had a steady job. But they lived right there at the temple. They lived down on the main floor, down next to where the kitchen was, where they prepared the food. I would come home from school at noon and carry trays of food upstairs to the patients. We were at the service station, and he told me about gas costing $1 a gallon. And I said, "Oh, Dad," but he was right, and then some. It's the way I tell it. That was a lot. They didn't have the money that people make nowadays, and it took a lot to put us around a table with a big family and have us sit down. And for breakfast we had cooked cereal. We didn't have boxes of cornflakes and other cereals. It was cooked cereal with cream skimmed from the pans of milk that were kept out in the shed where it was cold. We didn't have a refrigerator for quite a few years. But we survived, so.
And you remember what he said a loaf of bread would cost?
Oh yes, what bread?
What your dad said a loaf of bread would cost someday?
Did he say it would cost $1? $1 a loaf, and that sounded terrible. But you know how much a loaf of bread costs nowadays? I'm not even sure. Isn't that awful? At my age, you can't remember as well as we should. And we had one pair of shoes, and we had to wear them until they wore out so bad we couldn't wear them any longer. And then somehow the folks would go and get us another pair of shoes. I can't tell you how much they cost, but in those days they were pretty expensive for the amount of money we had.
So what do you do for fun when you were growing up?
Well, see, I only lived home with my family till I was 9, then I went to live with Aunt Sina. But we would just, we'd all eat together around the table, the brothers and sisters and Dad and Mother, and have the blessing and eat the food. And we did, oh, I remember they read us stories. That was important, to hear stories. We did go out and help with things that needed done out around the farm that we were able to help with.
Did you ever go on any vacations?
Well, about the only thing we did was go out towards Daniels Canyon or Strawberry and maybe camp for a night out there. That was a real vacation. But see, I only lived home with my folks till I was 9. Then I went to live with Aunt Sina and help with her children. But we did, that was special to go and spend the night out in that cold canyon.
And what about your children? Do you want to say anything to them?
Oh, have wonderful children. Just enjoy your families and love them.